أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, He says that we will certainly try you with something of fear and hunger and loss of life and loss of wealth and life, human life, and investment. So give glad tidings to those who have patience. The ones who, when calamity befalls them, they say, to Allah we belong and to Him we shall return. Those are the ones who Allah will shower with His blessings and mercy. And those are the ones who are truly guided. You see, from an Islamic perspective, death is where life begins. And from this perspective, you could say that we're an impossible enemy, because the worst thing you can do to a Muslim is kill them. But for us, death is the beginning. So when it comes to those white supremacists who have taken the lives of those 49, 50 people in Christchurch, thinking that they are ridding the world of the invading enemy, to put it in Tarrant, the killers, the terrorists' words, of the invading enemy, what he's actually doing is he's hardening the efforts and he's strengthening the spirit of Muslims all around the world. And here's what you need to understand, that this narrative which has been promulgated by right-wing extremists, who have been, frankly, the knowledge producers for the Islamophobic atmosphere through which and by which such terroristic minds can develop. Those people who've had this discourse of the peculiar Muslim other, abject other, that is distinctively known by his violence and uniquely understood by his terrorism, that discourse has been destabilized. And it's not just on this occasion. We have to be clear. There was the Chapel Hill shooting, there was Breivik killing 77 innocents, and now you have this man, Brendan Tarrant, or whatever his name is, killing 50 individuals, many of which are children. And he wanted the world to know about it, and he filmed it on social media, and he called himself a terrorist in his manifesto. There's no running away from it. He was inspired, yes, by his own ideological justification. And there is a continuity here between right-wing rhetoric, especially ultra-right and alternative right-wing rhetoric, and his own understanding of the world, especially in relation to immigration. Which is why we find a lot of people from the right now coming out and condemning the attack in reminiscent terms, because this, of course, reminds us of how Muslim leaders usually come and condemn attacks. And for once in their life, they have been able to introduce nuance to the discussion. I watched Stephen Crowder, I watched Ben Shapiro, I watched even Katie Hopkins, and their responses seem to indicate that, look, there's entanglement of different contributing factors, all of which shaped this individual, one of which was ideology, a lot of them admit. But it wasn't the only thing. The Daily Mail goes much further than that, putting a picture of this man and calling him the angelic boy, that his father had cancer and so on. As if, look, we have to look at this thing from different angles. But that nuance that they now introduced to the terroristic discussion was never introduced from their own knowledge producers and contributors when Muslim terrorists commit acts. It has to be reduced to a lowest common multiple, and it many times, if not always, has to be Islam itself. So why is it the case that it's inconceivable for the right-wing mind that there's a potentiality within their own ideological systems for people to churn out a net terrorism which emerges on our streets and our mosques? Why is it inconceivable for you to realize that terrorism can be committed by secular whites? It's that thesis that you've tried to superimpose upon the sociological reality which has now become untenable. It's that discourse that you have tried to iterate and reiterate into public spheres and through your platforms, which has been totally destabilized now. There's no more media covering up. The man himself wanted to be known. And now they're trying to censor his name and censor his material with the pretense, by the way, this is a pretense, of, yes, we don't want to give him notoriety. No, that's a pretense. The reason why you want to censor his name and you want to censor his actions is because you don't want us to reference him. That you know this is an entry point for academics. You know this is an entry point for people to criticize and reference this as a white supremacist which was inspired by right-wing terrorists as a terrorist. And now the body of work of right-wing terrorists is starting to become self-evident, so much so that it's become impossible for politicians and other elites to ignore it. And at this point, it's important for us to say, we actually do appreciate all the support. With all the anger that we have, that there has been community togetherness and support from all different aspects, all different parts of society. And we thank non-Muslim society communities for showing us your support. We also would like to show you our gratitude for that. This is exactly what we need to do. We need to realize that there are people of different dispositions, ideological, religious or otherwise, that are capable of these monstrous terroristic acts, and that the main motivating factor for those individuals is usually the same. It's an emotive one rather than an intellectual one, where they see themselves living in a state of perpetual war and conflict, and they want to enact this Call of Duty style role where they themselves are becoming the main protagonist and getting rid of the enemies. And of course, one thing runs almost consistently throughout all of these themes, which is that there is an element of ideological justification, whether it be from those terrorists from our side or those from the right-wing side. And that justification annuls or otherwise nullifies the principle of non-combatant immunity. It nullifies the principle of non-combatant immunity. But that is not particular to Islam. And it's not particular to Muslims. So the narrative is now being forcibly changed by virtue of the fact that we live in a hyper-globalized world and events cannot be disguised or otherwise camouflaged anymore. Social media is overtaking the media. This man himself wanted people to know he was a terrorist. No matter what the media says, this information is freely available to us and it can never be reversed. So the right wing needs to come to terms with itself, its immigration rhetoric, kicking these people out and rewinding the discourse. That all needs to be reassessed because it provides fertile grounds for the kind of terroristic actions that we see or have seen in Christchurch. I want to end this video by saying something very important, which is the following. It's high time that we have discussions and debates that the traditionalist Muslim community, especially those who adhere to classical jurisprudential understanding of Islam, and right-wing advocates, that we have discussions and debates on points of tension in controlled settings such that misconceptions can be corrected. Why is it the case that I always find myself telling people that, look, Islam doesn't tell people to go and kill innocents? That in chapter 60 verse 8, chapter 5 verse 32, and the Prophet, killing one person is like killing the whole of humanity. The Prophet told us not to kill women and children and so on. Why do I always have to repeat myself and then be told that I'm lying? That actually this is not what you believe, or that it is not what you ought to believe if you're a classical traditionalist Muslim. Don't tell me what I should believe. I know my scriptures more than the right-wing English speaking and no other language person who's telling me what I should believe. Don't tell me what I should believe. I know what we should believe. So let's have these discussions. We need to fix these misconceptions. Someone like Ben Shapiro, someone like Milo, someone like Jordan Peterson. This is an open invitation. I'm not going to call it an open challenge. This is an open invitation for a dialogue and discussion, where we have equal time to talk and ask questions from each other, and where we can probe each other. I think this is necessary, and I think it will solve a lot of societal problems. But in regards to what we should do for the people of Christchurch, we should make dua for them. As the Muslims, we have to make supplication for them and realize that the Prophet Muhammad, I'm going to end with this, the Prophet Muhammad says something beautiful, and this is in hadith of Tirmidhi. He says, "Man qutila duna malihi fahuwa shaheed." Whoever is killed protecting their wealth, he's a shaheed. "Man qutila duna damihi fahuwa shaheed." Whoever is killed protecting their blood, i.e. themselves, then he's a shaheed. "Duna ahlihi fahuwa shaheed." Protecting their families, fahuwa shaheed. He's a martyr. He's a martyr. He's a martyr. So we believe that these individuals are martyrs. There's no doubt about that. And even we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them the high stations of Jannah and to make us with them. And I'll leave with that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.